Okay, so talking about part two of Masters Universe of the Revelation, uh, the Kevin Smith experience. Okay, um, did not like part one of this. Part two slightly better, I think, slightly better. Actually got a few He-Man scenes, but some silly decisions, I think. I think were made throughout the production, as you'd probably expect. So I guess a slight step in the right direction. Um, uh, all right, so start off with episode one. One thing about this is I think the costumes are a bit rubbish. I don't like what Skelegod looks like. I think that's pretty poor, which is weird because the animation itself is amazing. Um, But yeah, Skelegod does not look good. The fact that he's got no throat and his skull just seems to be hovering on a flame of some description, uh, which is annoying. And I think Mark Hamill as Skeletor is super annoying. It didn't annoy me so much in the first part because I mean Skeletor wasn't in it. Let's be honest. But it's very much his Joker voice um, over and over. Um, having nicknames for people and things like that, without any of the fun original Skeletor stuff where he called Beastman a boob, etc. Um, so um, yeah, overall it starts off a bit better because we've actually got some Skeletor content, I guess, as opposed to it being all about Tiller, which plenty's been said about that. Um, so sort of go into episode two, um, and there's a little bit of actual respect paid, I guess, towards Adam from Man at Arms, which is obviously there's zero respect paid to Adam during the first part of the program of the series. Man at Arms has been pretty good throughout all of this. Actually, I've enjoyed the bits with Man at Arms. Yeah, it does seem like the writers hate all these characters. Like, I wonder if they'll do more seasons, but just without Kevin Smith writing it, which I think would make it better. I think they missed the mark on a bunch of like attempted comedy situations in this. It might be in episode two where Fisto says he is going to fist somebody, which you know, I guess you got to have it in there with a name like Fisto. Um, I guess then we're going back to when we go into episode three. It looks like the thing that really occurred to me is I feel like Skeletor used to have way better plans in the original series, um, but I mean, even the other characters sort of mention that as we go on. Evelyn's pretty keen to tell him that he's small-minded and that he doesn't have the best ideas. There's a bit of a flashback scene where he's rescuing Evelyn when she's a child, and he's got the Horde symbol on his belt, so I guess that's sort of foreshadowing um, what's coming back. Um, in this one, basically, Skeletor's so dumb, which annoys me as well. Like Skeletor's very much the whipping boy in this series, which you know he was a pretty ridiculous bad guy in the original series, but I thought this series would be an opportunity to make him a bit more of a formidable enemy. But yeah, no. Evelyn just tricks him instantly, takes his sword, and then she becomes the He-Man sorceress defender, keeper of the secrets of Castle Grayskull, which is like super jumpy for episode 3. So episode 6, we had Skeletor take the Sword of Power. He becomes Skelegod. Then 2 episodes later, they take that away from him, and Evelyn now becomes, super He-Man stuff. I missed He-Man turning into Savage He-Man in episode 2, which, look, gotta be honest, I was just happy to see He-Man for once. It's not something that you can always count on from the show, it turns out. So then, episode 4, it looks like by now Teela knows that she is the sorceress's daughter, and she's sort of attempting to utilize some of that magic, and she, well, at the time I thought she actually failed at something throughout this series. I was like, oh wow, they're actually writing that she can get things wrong and stuff, but it turns out I was wrong about that. She did get it right, and everyone did hear her psychic message. So I don't really know what I was expecting there. So yeah, so she doesn't fail at anything, which, shame on me for thinking that she would. Interesting that when they invade Castle Grayskull, Blade from the live action movie with Dolph Lundgren was one of the characters in there, so that was interesting. It's weird, but so Skeletor comes back, teams up with Adam, and they go to Castle Grayskull to fight Evelyn, who is now powered up like He-Man, and but with the magic powers of Skeletor. Strangely, He-Man, Skeletor, Panther, and Cringer, and I shouldn't say He-Man, it's actually Adam, go to fight Evelyn. Like, he hasn't had many wins throughout the series, but Adam does way too good fighting as Evelyn if she has all those powers. He manages to cut her face with just a regular sword. Like, I don't know how that happens. Cringer isn't scared for a particular reason. I don't understand that. He's supposed to be a scared cat when all this type of stuff is going on. It's worth noting that of a 5-episode series, we're up to episode 4, and we still actually haven't seen proper He-Man yet. We've seen Savage He-Man, and Evelyn turns Beastman into like a battle beast type of thing, which Beastman's costume's another thing that annoyed me. It's just like he's always just walking around in a loincloth. I feel like he's fluffy, puffy fur jacket with some old spikes on it was a better costume. I think he had that in like the first episode of the last season. Same with like Triclops and Trapjaw. Like, the original costumes are just better. Maybe they're harder to animate or something, but I just wish they would just put them in their real costumes. And like I've already said with Skeletor, he looks way better just as Skeletor. Evelyn looks way better just as Evelyn. Teela looked way better as Teela in her Teela costume. But yeah, that's all been said as well, I guess. Evelyn kills Panther, which is disappointing. I like Panther as a character. Don't know why. I don't know why that needed to happen to move the story forward. Nobody was upset that Panther died. Didn't elicit any emotion, so there's just really no point putting that in there. Episode 5, which is the final episode, which is the best episode of the season, best episode of both parts to both seasons. Finally get He-Man back, thank God. Get to actually see He-Man do something in his own show. Not a lot though. It's Andra gets just as much of the battle scene as He-Man. Orko is returned. Orko gets a bit of a moment. But yeah, so give that 6 out of 10, I guess, the battle scene because He-Man's actually doing stuff. Um, of course, um, He-Man doesn't fight against Evil Lyn and doesn't defeat Evil Lyn. That is left to Teela, which is fine. But you know, Teela beats her by talking to her, which had to be expected, I guess. Yeah. So then, what happens at the end? Andra doesn't become He-Man, thank God. Teela doesn't become He-Man, thank God. He-Man remains as He-Man, so that is better than I was expecting. I was really, really expecting the worst when it comes to that kind of business. I think what else happens? Of course, he stays He-Man, basically just because of Teela's consent. So it's a message about consent, of course. And there's plenty of you know messages about toxic masculinity through Skeletor and Evil Lyn's interactions, but they're pretty fucking heavy-handed. So if you didn't if you didn't catch those yourself, I'm sure you did. What else happens? What else happens? So at the end, Skeletor goes back to Snake Mountain, and he's annoyed with Trapjaw and Triclops because of Motherboard. Now, I don't know why they hate Skeletor so much, or why he can't just be a bad guy in an ongoing season, but Motherboard infects him, and then a little Horde symbol comes out at the end. So perhaps they're leaning towards Hordak or something like that. But again, it's just like Skeletor's had no real screen time as Skeletor, coming up with Skeletor plans to try to defeat He-Man. And I mean, that was as much of what made the show good as any other part of it. Yeah, what can we say? What can we say? It was better than the first 6 episodes. I mean, the first 6 episodes I disliked immensely, and I thought, I thought some parts of this were pretty good, and I thought other parts were pretty rubbish as well. So, what would you give it? I mean, you could give this 6 out of 10. I think 6 out of 10. I mean, the first one I would give a 1 or a 2 out of 10. So 6 out of 10 is a big improvement. It has He-Man. He doesn't give up the sword to, new, diverse Andra character. She does become Man-at-Arms, but Teela was going to become Man-at-Arms anyway. So, I mean, it's not a massive deal for me. Yeah, 6 out of 10. Worth watching if you want to get some of the sour taste out of your mouth from the first lot. But overall, really just a missed opportunity. If you wanted to bring Hordak in, you could have kept Skeletor just as Skeletor, and Hordak could have come in through sort of a different dimension. I mean, you could add She-Ra to the mix then if you wanted to, but instead they're making, I don't know, Motherboard as some sort of evil Horde character. Yeah, no complaints of the animation. The animation is awesome. I love Powerhouse. But yeah, what else can I say? Decent He-Man fight scene at the end, but I mean, Andra does just as much awesome stuff, which I don't think should be the case for a character that nobody cares about. Teela becomes the sorceress. That's fine, but she's also, of course, she's not bound by any of the rules that the sorceress should be bound by, which, again, to be expected. To be expected. I'm not sure you could do much more with that in this day and age. Um, yeah, that's about it. That's about it. So I have a massive 2 subscribers. So perhaps if anyone would like to subscribe, please do let me know by subscribing, I guess. Uh, Hit the like button, leave a comment. Um, Dislike it if you didn't like it because I disagree with YouTube getting rid of the dislike button for whatever that's worth for my massive channel. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. I will have a more in-depth discussion with somebody else that's watched it coming up in a week or so. And yeah, thanks for listening.